So Maria, take me back to the start of 2020. What was going on there and what triggered you to begin your RNT journey?
So the start of 2020, I had just been back in Colombia. I'm from Colombia. I had been home for Christmas, New Year's, and sort of like the first 2 weeks of January. So the start of 2020, I was back in London, back to work. Um, and I was going through like the pictures from the holiday and time with family and everything else. And I saw this picture of myself sitting in a bikini on my parents' terrace at home. And I'm looking at it, and it's like my legs and my belly and all of me was like pouring out of the sides of the chair. And I'm thinking, oh, no, 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 no. This is definitely not a good picture. When did things sort of get out of hand? When did it get this bad? And I'm looking at the pictures, and in some of them, I'm standing next to one of my sisters. We're very close in age, and we look alike a lot. And through our lives, most of the time, we're sort of being kind of the same size. And I'm looking at this picture, and I'm looking like twice the size of my sister. I'm like, God, no, no, what is happening? And basically, I was like breaking point. I was like, no, no, you cannot be this way again. And
Mm.
I say again because I went and stepped on the scale, and I was at that point 79 kilos. Now, the last time I have put on weight, that much weight, I was close to 85 kilos, and that was back in 2010. Now, in 2010, I didn't know absolutely anything about uh, food. I would say I didn't even know how to cook. That's how bad it was, because I I'd always lived at home with my parents. There was always food there that I didn't have to cook myself. When I moved out of my parents' house, I moved to a different city to go to university. I was living with family, and they were with a different family, and they were friends. So there was the same situation. So I didn't really, like, through university, I didn't really have to worry about cooking my own food or anything of the sort. And then my friend's mom, over the weekend, she would say, well, I'm not cooking. You guys, you can, go out, eat, do whatever. And we were out and about most of the weekend, going to the cinema and doing things that people do when they're in uni. So it wasn't really a problem. But back in university, we were relatively close to campus. So we would walk back and forth 2, 3 times a day if we needed to.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like a balance, even though over the weekends we were eating burgers and pizzas and popcorn and sodas at the cinema. Uh, we still were doing a crazy amount of walking, and we were exercising because we were young. We would go for runs, and there was a group of us living together. So that was kind of like the thing to do. So through like growing up and going through university, my weight was never a problem. It was after I moved here to the UK and I was like on my own. Sorry, I'm just getting a bit upset about this because it's just crazy. You can like go through life and never really know the importance of like cooking your own food. So yeah, I moved to the UK in 2007. Fast forward 3 years in 2010, and I have put on an incredible amount of weight. It was just crazy, absolutely crazy. Um, I work in construction. I still do. Um, the the company had given me a company car, so things were bad, and after the car, they go even worse. Sorry, I need to pause for a second. I need to go
It's
get
okay.
some tissue.
You
Just
okay?
gets, yeah, I'm fine. It's just it still gets like super emotional talking about this stuff because it's like in a way like you're living it all over again, being in that really terrible place, and you think like you don't really notice it until you realize like how bad it is, how bad the situation really is. So in 2010, and this is like that was like the first aha moment. I went home because my maternal grandmother, she had been sick with diabetes for many years, and she was really ill, and we all knew she was gonna pass away. So I got home, and basically my grandma, she pretty much passed away when I was traveling. I got home and she was already gone. And then the days after that, my mom, she didn't want to stay with family. She was like, nah, it's, we've gone through all of this process and it's been so long and it's been so painful. Like, I just want to go away and have some peace and quiet. So we went to a different place where one of my sisters was living, and we went to stay with her. And my sister, here's the funny thing, she used to live in a block of flats. She used to live on a 10th floor. So there was this day I went out to the supermarket with my dad. We're coming back with the bags of the shopping, and the lift was out of service. They were doing some maintenance and they weren't working. And my dad was like, well, it's just 10 floors. We can walk up the stairs. And I was like, yeah, we can walk up the stairs. So halfway a 10-story climb, I'm like dying. I couldn't walk anymore. I couldn't breathe. I thought I was gonna die. By the time I made it to the 10th floor, I sat on the sofa. Basically, my sister, she's a doctor. She was taking my blood pressure and she was checking up on me every hour because they were scared. She was like, your tension is over the roof. If it doesn't get any better, we have to call an ambulance. Like, this is really bad. And all I had done was walk up 10 floors, which seems a lot, but really it isn't. It really isn't. Now that I think of all the walking I do, and all the walking I do on building sites and buildings, and I go up and down 4 or 5 floors 10, 15 times a day some days. So it's not really at all. So that was like the first breaking point in my life. And at that point, I was over 83 kilos.
Yeah.
So after that first trip, I was like, nah, I'm joining the gym and I'm gonna fix this. And I did. I absolutely cut, because the focus with my family at that point was, diabetes is what's waiting for you, kind of thing. That's what's on the horizon, is going to get you, and all of these hard and high blood pressure problems and all of this. And I was 25. I was 25. So I was like, nah, I have to fix this. So after that holiday, and I'm talking early 2011, I joined the gym. I cut off completely soft drinks, concentrate, juice, drinks, all of that stuff. Another thing that I was a big fan of was the drive-through. That was like, no. Anything that I could get on a drive-through, because I was in this really bad habit of not preparing my food and not cooking and not having any food at home. I was buying pretty much every single meal. The only food I would have at home would be breakfast, and even that would be like Frosties or Cheerios. So it was all full of sugar. It was just really, really bad. So then I just started making small changes. I started going to the gym. I cut off a lot of junk. I cut off pretty much all of the processed food and anything with like excess sugar in it. And that's how it all sort of started that time. So it took me about a year to get myself to around 65 kilos. So I lost a total of about 20 kilos in a year. And then I maintained that weight for the most part of 6-7 years. So I was sort of like, okay, I continued to exercise. Exercise was never a problem. It was not a problem growing up. It was not a problem going through university. At home, my parents always sort of, we weren't focused in sports at all. The focus with my parents at home was like, you have to get good grades, you have to, get in your books, you have to study, but we are also expecting you to get good grades in PE. and my mom and dad, they wake up to go for a walk pretty much every day at 5 a.m. And that's been like the rules of the house. It's always been the norm at home. And there was a point when I was a teenager, my mom was going through some hormonal stuff, and she had to have some surgery, and she put on a lot of weight. And trying to like support her and get her to come out and to exercise and to walk and to do all of those things, all of us joined the gym. So I remember at age 14 or 15, as a family, we would wake up at 4:30 in the morning, go to the gym, hit the gym, have a workout, come home, get breakfast, and then we would go to school and my parents would go to work. And that was our routine as a family. So exercise for me was never the problem. I knew it, that's what you do. You just exercise at least 3 times a day, and you walk, and you go places. If you can walk, you walk.
Yeah.
So the problem and the lack of, I would say, education was always food. And I've always had a sweet tooth. It's just one of those things that you either have it or you don't. You like sugar in food, so you don't. And I do. I still do. I still like sugar and chocolate and all of those things. But now I know better. Yeah. So where was I? So I went back to,
So you maintain the weight.
So I maintained that weight. And then what happened then? During that process, I was living here in the UK. I went back home because my visa kind of expired and I couldn't extend it. So I went back home to Colombia. And I was home for about 3 years. And then I came back to the UK in 2016. And I was still around the same way, 65, 66. So I came back to the UK to study a master's degree. And even then through university, because pretty much I didn't have any money. It wasn't hard to keep control of food because I knew I had to plan how much I needed to, or how much I could spend. So I knew exactly, what money I had available to me to go out and to spend it in things that, pretty much to eat what I wasn't supposed to be eating. So that first year, that year of the master's through university, all was good. The problem was when I started working again, that's when everything started going downhill. I was like, ooh, I have a job and now I have money and now I can spend and I can, go out with friends and I can do this and I can do that. And then that all of that process of having like moving money and having that freedom to go and just spend it, then you find yourself like I was going out with my friends from uni pretty much every week. Every week on Friday or Saturday, we were meeting up for brunches. We were meeting up for Friday night drinks. We were meeting up for nothing and anything at all. Like even there was no birthdays, no nothing. It was just the thing you would do to just go out and meet people and eat some junk and have a drink. And then things started kind of getting out of control. And then again, by what am I gonna say? The beginning of 2019, my boyfriend at the time, he moved in with me. So it all started well, but it went downhill very, very quickly from there, because then we sort of became lazy and we sort of became complacent together. And then it would be like, I really don't want to cook. Do you want to cook? Nah, I really don't want to cook. And then we would be getting takeouts, and that was takeout Friday, probably Saturday and Sunday as well. So that really wasn't fantastic. Then things that happened in our relationship is sort of started going backwards. Things weren't really working. By, I'm gonna say, the end of 2019, sort of October-ish, November, we both knew it was the end. It was one of those things that were things happening between us that we were like talking about the same things over and over again, and we were like, nah. By the end of 2019, we were both going on our separate holidays and doing our own thing. Just sort of, I was in a space where I was kind of like waiting for him to move up, kind of thing. So yeah, then in November 2019, I had an injury. I went out for a run, twisted my ankle, was completely out of action for about a month, that I couldn't really run. I couldn't really put a lot of pressure on it. And I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna stop. I'm gonna let it heal properly, because if I don't, then the problem is never going to. And every time I start exercising again, then I'm just gonna do more damage. So then I just stopped. I was like, nah, I'm just not gonna try to go on to strain it in any way. I'm just gonna sit and relax, and I'll do something about it at some point when it's healed properly. But doing something about it was like through Christmas and whatever. There was a lot of comfort eating and home Christmas. And yeah, that then takes us to January 2020 with, again, 79 kilos. And I'm like, no, what is happening? No. So that was like the beginning. Then at that point, I was thinking of, like, again, dieting, food, calorie counting, all of these things. And I was like, well, you know what, that's kind of exhausting. Maybe there's a quicker way to just lose the weight. And then once I get to that point, I know I can maintain it because I've done it before, kind of thing. And I basically started looking out at getting a gastric balloon. So, sorry, I'm just getting upset again.
It's okay. Take your time.
This is gonna be like the worst podcast ever.
Take your time.
You're just gonna have someone crying on your screen. Yeah, so I went to a couple of appointments in a couple of different clinics here in London to see if that was a possibility. Oddly enough, for my height, I'm 166. At that weight, 79, you're not considered obese. You're overweight, but you're not obese. So basically, I wasn't like fat enough to get a balloon. And I was like, well, this is just stupid, because there's absolutely no way I'm gonna go ahead now and put on more weight to go through an invasive procedure so that I can lose the weight. That it just, in my head, it just went like, and then I think at that point I had already researched RNT, but I hadn't actually like joined. And I think it was the end of January that I signed up for it. I was like, nah, I'm gonna try this and see what happens. And here we are now, 1 year later.
It's incredible journey. We're going to discuss what you've done in the last year, because you've not only got into the shape of your life, but you've maintained it in a whole different in a whole different way. But before we do that, I want to ask, there's two points you said you gained weight quite rapidly. The first time you said it was down to a lack of education and not understanding how to cook, right? When you came to the UK. I want to focus on the second time because that was when you gained it again after having maintained it for so long, which having maintained for so long, you'd have thought it was there for life. But what happened? I know you mentioned a few things that did happen, but what was going on in your mind that, because you had a bit more education now, you had a bit more understanding of around to cook. What was going on in your mind that was causing you to eat so much and be inactive, etc.? What was essentially the muck that was feeding this desire?
Oh, that's a tough one. I don't want to blame it on the person, but I would say the relationship as a whole. It just wasn't. It wasn't the best thing ever. Because when I how can I put this? You sort of attract where you are at a certain point in life kind of directs what you are going to attract towards your life as well. And I think we both were at a point that we weren't very happy on our own, and we weren't very happy together, which was a bit of a problem. And then it was just like this general laziness going around between us. It was just like what are we gonna do? No, we're not gonna do anything. And then Sunday would come and we would spend the whole day in bed watching TV and looking at our screens and not doing anything.
Yeah.
And you when you're lazy and you find yourself like wanting to be lazy and you're on your own, maybe you're lazy one day, maybe you're lazy a couple of days. But when you have company, being lazy it gets worse. It gets worse because where you could be pushing yourself and pushing the other person to do better, you can also put yourself in a situation where you're pushing each other to do worse. And to not try and do anything, which is for me, I think was like the breaking point to accept that was the end. Like this, I don't know about you, but for me, I need a lot of stimulation. I need. I'm not gonna say I need motivation, but I like to be surrounded with people that kind of like have a purpose and want to do something and have some kind of ambition. And at that point, I wasn't really getting that. And the feeling I had at that point was like, you're there and you are where you want to be in life, and that's fine. So you can afford to be lazy, but I can't. And yeah, it was a lot of that. It was a lot to do with that relationship, definitely.
What was your self-talk at the time?
My what? Sorry?
Your self-talk. What were you telling yourself in your mind?
I don't know. Probably that this is gonna sound weird, but it's like I was already in a relationship, so I had like no reason to want to look better kind of thing. I don't know. I got you.
Almost apathy.
Yeah, like an apathy, like like that lack of ambition, like well, if you don't care what you look like, you're not gonna care what I look like, kind of thing. It was really bad. It was really bad. We got to a point where it was just bad. It wasn't bad in the sense that we were aggressive towards each other or anything, just bad in the sense that we just weren't being positive or supportive or anything. We were just like going through the motions, and it wasn't going anywhere.
When you compare your experience to 2010, the first time, you mentioned the lack of education being a fuel. Was there anything else that was causing? Because you said you went from living a very active lifestyle to suddenly gaining over 20 kilos. Have you reflected on what happened there?
It was a combination of factors. When I moved to London, I first started working in hospitality, and I had a lot of free food. So imagine free food, and I had two jobs. One was in a coffee shop that had a kitchen similar to Pret, not Pret. And I used to work in the kitchen, so we could eat whatever we wanted to. We have free food, free coffee, free whatever. And my other job, I was with this agency that would send waiting staff to 5-star hotels for parties and events and stuff. So as you can imagine, food from a 5-star hotel and it's all there within reach. And it was amazing. I mean, ask me what kinds of foods I have not tried. I mean, yeah. There was, you know, I had free food that I didn't have to cook it. So there was absolutely no portion control. I didn't know what that was. I was just like, well, I have all of this food, and if I can eat it, I'm just gonna eat it. And then after that, when I finally go, like I finished my language studies, which is what I was doing at the time, and I go onto my first kind of professional job. Then I didn't have the free food anymore, but by then I had already put on a bit of weight. And then after a few months with that company, they gave me a company car. So whatever walking that I was doing was not happening. I was just driving everywhere. I was working like crazy. I was working 12, 14 hours a day. I had no time to stop, to sit down and have a meal anywhere. So I would have breakfast at home before leaving the house. I would have lunch in the car. And then I would buy something to eat to put in the microwave on my way home in the evenings, or sometimes just go through the drive-through again and buy some more food and eat it in the car before I got home. So yeah, I lived in my car. Got it. It's the short answer.
So okay, so you've told us how you got to the point of starting your RNT journey. You had your trigger moment when you went to the appointment, the gastric surgery. Then you decided you're going to do it properly. How did you find diving into the process and starting this new journey of yours? What was your mindset coming into it? How did you find the initial cleaning the palate and just getting the ball rolling?
Well, the first thing, right before the start of the journey, I went on holidays to Singapore. A good friend of mine lives there. Well, sort of January, I signed up. I go on the waiting list. I got my place, and I knew I was going to start at the end of March. Okay, so basically, my thoughts at that point were like, well, I don't have to wait until March to start making changes, and I knew that. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna start cutting all of the junk again. I'm gonna start like cooking all of my meals, and I started counting calories. I got my Fitness Pal, and I was like, right, okay, let's just put a number in here. Let's just say I wanna, I don't know, get to this much weight, and then the app sort of calculated that I had to be somewhere on around 1,600 calories a day, and then I was sort of like following that, but that macro was like 50% carbs. So more like a maintaining kind of macro, but it was still on a calorie deficit. So I started looking into that, and by the time my journey started, I had already lost some weight. I was already near 75 kilos. So I don't know. I sort of always knew how to get it done. I was just being lazy. There's no other way to put it.
So what was different this time then for you going into it, and even just coming into the first few weeks once you kicked off from the end of March? What was different for you?
I don't know, wanting it more.
Yeah.
It all started with the revenge body idea, but
The what? The revenge body. Yeah. Okay.
But that wasn't. It was a lot of things. It was A, the revenge body, B, again the threat of the health issues.
Yeah.
What else? Just trying to feel better about myself, look better, improve in a lot of things. Yeah, just trying to stop feeling so shit about everything. That was the main motivations. Sorry, it's just, you spend a whole year processing things, and it's hard. It's still hard to talk about it, but yeah, that was the main motivation. Like, A, that it was something that I really, really wanted. So I knew I had to get it done. B, I had an idea of how to get started. See, like I said, exercise was never the problem. So yeah, I just started like slowly going to the gym, slowly cutting on processed junk food. And then I went to Singapore early March, by the very first week of March. And when I came back, basically when I was at the airport before boarding, that's when I got a call from work saying, when you come back, we want you to stay working from home, because with this virus, we don't know what the situation is, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, this is happening. And then I landed, and a couple of days later of being told I'd be working from home, then I was told they were going to put me on furlough. And I'm like, oh, what does this mean? What does this mean? Like, why me? Do they not need me anymore? Am I gonna lose my job? Am I like, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? And then a week later, it was like full lockdown and pandemic, and yeah, 2020.
What have you processed over the past year? You said it's been you spent a lot of time alone processing things, working through a lot of the muck. What have you learned about yourself, and what sort of revelations and realizations have you had over the past 12 months about yourself and everything that's happened that led up to that breaking point at the start of 2020?
I think it's been very humbling, the whole experience of the lockdown and everything. Getting, well, because when you're facing, I don't know how people have processed their sort of life in the pandemic, but you only have one body, like, through your life. That's the only one you're gonna get. There's no technology being developed to give you another body. And this is something I used to make the analogy with Ed. I don't know if you're familiar with that series called Altered Carbon.
No, I'm not.
Where people, it's somewhere in the future where the human body becomes a shell, and they find the technology to transfer someone's consciousness from one shell to another. So your body, you can recycle, you can have a new one, brand new body made of, kind of thing. So And that's something I was watching at the beginning of the journey. So for me, it was like, oh, this is science fiction, you know, but it's also quite opposite to reality. You only have one body, and you have to look after what you have, not just physically, but also your emotions and how you live through relationships, how you handle being with a partner, what you get out of your relationships, why you go into a relationship with someone in the first place, all of those things that you, I don't know, maybe you meet someone and you get on, and all of a sudden you're dating, and then you date for years, and then things unravel in a certain way, but you never stop to analyze why and if it is really what you want. So that's been like a revelation of the pandemic, like how I relate romantically to men, and why and what it is that I really want out of a relationship, and why my previous relationship didn't work based on those things that I'm supposed to be wanting and working for. The other one was obviously the health concerns. And yes, what else have I learned and reflected upon? Time distribution, procrastination is a big one. People say that people who procrastinate are perfectionists. That's a lot of BS. You procrastinate because you're a little bit lazy and you lack focus to do certain things. That is the reason why I procrastinate. And I procrastinate a lot when I don't want to do something. If it's something I really don't want to do, I'll find myself definitely procrastinating and going around in circles trying not to do it. So yeah, and all the other things that personally I've learned, that you need to be humble, you need to be kind, you need to be patient with people. You don't know what people are going through, you don't know what's happening in their lives. Yeah.
In an email you sent me, must be a couple of months ago, you said you resolved a lot of your anger issues, and you discussed how you reframed your thoughts on anger and how you managed that. Do you want to elaborate on that now?
Yeah, well, at the beginning of the journey, because I was like, well, I was angry at my ex for a lot of reasons and a lot of things. Then I started exercising. I would be like running, and I would put like all of the energy of my anger into my workouts. And that's something I used to discuss with at the time. And I said to him, like, gyms are closed, but if they were open, I would be in that room with the punching bags, just like punching the bag and letting it all out, kind of thing. So there was that in the beginning, and then I started reflecting on that, like, why am I so angry? Who am I really angry at? And then again, like I said to you, I read a lot of like 3 or 4 different books on personality and emotional intelligence and relationships and all of these things. And I used to listen a lot to the podcast. I started listening to the RNT podcast from episode 1. Like I think I went nonstop for a good 60 to 70 episodes during the first few months. Like I would just listen to one episode every day. I started from episode 1.
Yeah.
So yes, a lot of the things that people say through their experience on the podcast, I would be thinking like, I've thought of this. Oh, this happened to me. Like, I'm processing through this other stuff as well. I would find it very, very relatable, and I would be like, right, okay. So the focus with the anger was just that, just going through that process and finding out that yes, while I was still very angry at my ex, a lot of that anger was at myself, because at the end of the day, nobody makes you do anything. You put yourself in a situation, and you yourself have to be, like I said to you as well, in control to just get out of it and fix it. So yeah, the anger was like at the realization that you waste so much time and so much energy on stuff that really doesn't matter at the end of the day.
How do you feel in terms of your control of your mind, of your emotions, of your thoughts? Have you disassociated yourself with them? Are you feeling more in control of them and seeing them more as fleeting? Or how's that evolution been over the past year?
Well, clearly talking about it, it's still hard.
Yeah.
But I think my self-awareness has increased. It has gone to a place where I never thought it was possible. Like I find myself like, I'm thinking this, and for example, when I wake up sometimes, there's days that I don't want to work out. That I think it happens to everybody. And I think like, why do I really don't want to work out? Why? What is happening? And then I'm going like, yeah, I didn't really sleep properly because I chose to stay up and watch another half an hour of that show that taught me nothing, kind of thing. So it's kind of going through getting to know yourself better and understanding why you do the things you do, and just choosing not to do the things that don't benefit you in any way. Like staying up watching TV, right? You're entertained, but if it means that half an hour of sleep that you're sort of stealing from yourself, you're gonna need it the next morning to put back to invest it back into your own self-care and your health. Then what's better? If you had to trade, would you take the half an hour of sleep, or would you take the half an hour of TV, kind of thing? So with that in mind, I think since around, but I went back to work last year in July, and it was very slow. And then it kind of started going up to speed at around the same time I moved houses in September. So from after the move, I said, okay, I need to like reset my schedules and my timings for things. And I knew at that point I wasn't really being very strict with like bedtime and my hours of sleep and all of that. And that's when I started. I said 10 p.m. phones go on do not disturb, screens go off. That's when I go to bed. And my alarm is at 5 a.m. every day.
Yeah.
Workout or no workout. That's my sleep time, and that's it. And it's worked really, really well. I most days I wake up before the alarm goes off.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, the question I want to ask you now is, the education of nutrition has been a big thing for you in the past. How do you feel now, 10 years later, with your grasp of nutrition? Because you mentioned such an important point, which is, I think it's almost like you said it and you couldn't believe that it's true, in that when no one teaches us about nutrition, no one teaches us about food. It's such a basic human need to survive is food, and yet we don't even learn anything about it. How do you feel now about it?
All you learn is like if you starve, you die, kind of thing. But no, the things that are really important. Someone put a post on the group the other day saying, no food makes you fat. It's just the amounts of it. And I think a lot of the education, or the most valuable thing for me has been the portion control, because at times before, even when I wasn't eating anything that was necessarily unhealthy, the portions, the amounts of food that were going on the plate were incredibly out of proportion. And that balance between the different food groups. When we are taught in school, everybody gets shown the pyramid or the diagram with like carbs and protein and veggies and whatnot. And they tell you your calorie intake is, I don't know, it should be around 2,000 calories for women and 3,000 or 2,500 for men. That is all well and good, but that's only gonna work for you if you already have a healthy weight and you already have a healthy lifestyle. So it's not the diagram that is bad. It's just that people are not properly taught like what the diagram is good for. So yes, it is a good indication when you're on a healthy weight and a healthy lifestyle. But if you're already overweight and you're sitting at home, not really moving and not doing a lot, it's not going to help you get there. You're just going to maintain what you already have. So I think that's been one thing, portion control, because if you eat too much, you're just gonna put on weight. That there's no two ways about it. If you eat more than your body needs to, it's just gonna start storing the excess. And then the other thing that I've sort of really now noticed with nutrition is I find myself like experimenting with food, because I know the following day I'm gonna get on the scale and I'm gonna see the pretty much the immediate effect of what I ate today. I'll see it tomorrow. I've sort of started noticing like what happens, for example, when I eat, for example, there's a week I change between rice and maybe I eat a bit more pasta, or maybe I eat potatoes. When I change, for example, my carbs, I notice, for example, there's a change maybe in water retention. I sometimes see my weight go up a little bit for a day or two, and then it goes back to normal. So there are fluctuations, but I kind of now know what foods cause it.
Yeah. Building that lifestyle solution becomes so important, because the ultimate is, this is probably a process you're going through now, which is probably a good time to talk about it, is to be able to go out, have fun, have your birthday, go on holidays, but keep body weight stable. And it's knowing, what's the right amount when you're in social occasions. And this is where most people trip up, right? And now that things are getting lifted, it's a lot. Whereas before the challenge was, let's have a Friday night takeaway. It's like now it's like, oh, let's all meet in a restaurant and have drinks and food. And it's a constant sort of battle that the world is conspiring against us with making things more difficult in terms of the environment, the choices, etc. And it's really our responsibility now to understand, look, what standards we have for ourselves, what health parameters do we want to stay within, and what are our rules when we go out? Are we going to have one drink, or are we going to have 5 drinks? Like, what are the rules and the standards? And I think this is probably the journey that you're on now, is finding that balance between having fun and having quote unquote fun and finding balance for your health. And you can have both. And this is the journey of, once you get past your checkpoint, it's like, okay, now I need to integrate myself. So I'm rewiring my behavior, mindset, and identity to hold that weight. So for example, I have a sort of a parameter of 2 kilos that I fluctuate between. And that's just where I sort of sit between 80 and 82. And I just move between that parameter. And it's okay, because that's, different foods will fluctuate you, different environments will fluctuate you. And you just sort of accept that period of fluctuation. I think once you find your sweet spot, which I think you're probably at anyway, once you find that sweet spot, it's just about learning how to stay with it. And that takes a while, but that journey that you're on now is an interesting education that you've probably not had before.
Yeah. And the other thing was that, because I was already at a point where I didn't have to weigh all of my ingredients. I wasn't doing it anyways, because I was like, I can pretty much eye my food and say, this is the right amount of rice, this is the right amount of chicken, this is the right amount of this thing and the other. And because I food prep, then I know, because I know if I'm buying a tray of chicken and it's 1 kilo of chicken, I should be getting 6 or 7 servings out of it, and that's it. So, you know, it gets to a point when you meal prepping, then you know what your portion should look like. And if you've been weighing your ingredients for a year, then you know.
Well,
then
that's the thing. It's like, even now at this stage, I still, every now and then, I'll still weigh most of my food, because without realizing, your eyes can suddenly get bigger than you think.
Yes, correct. So
That 10 grams of peanut butter becomes 20.
So the last week or so, I was telling Ryan, like, that I'm back on weighing my ingredients, because something's not quite right. So I've been weighing my ingredients for 2 weeks. We've been talking about maybe cutting a little bit just to get the weight down. And I said to him, yeah, let's do it, but let's do it after I'm done with my exam. And he sort of readjusted my macro, but he said, start making the changes as soon as you can. So I went back on my Fitness Pal, and I'm like, okay, I haven't put in the new macro in. I still have my macro that I've had for the last, I don't know, 10 or so weeks. But I made the change of weighing my ingredients again. And then also, the only other thing I said, I'm just gonna see how I feel without eating bread in the morning, and I've already dropped 1 kilo. So just by doing that, just going back to weighing my ingredients, and I've only cut about 200 calories of a bagel.
Yeah, but it's always surprising once you reset the numbers how much you actually cut. So
yeah,
it's a good lesson to keep doing, and I do it all the time, just to reset sharpen the sword. So Maria, how has the physical been the vehicle for you thus far in this journey?
Yeah, well, for me, the biggest thing has been the data that we collect on a daily basis. Like, I had never ever in my life ever before weighed myself in the morning every single day, or measured my weight, or even mark down how many repetitions of every exercise I'm doing. That was not a thing I did ever before. And now that I'm kind of focusing on all those things, and I see how it impacts, say, the amount of food, how it impacts the weight, the number of repetitions, and the weight that you're lifting, how it impacts your physique and how you look, and how your body is built. It sort of made me realize that you can take control of a lot of things, especially when it comes to food and your body. Like, nobody forces you to eat, and nobody puts food in your mouth for you. That's all on you. Similarly with a lot of things in life, with work, with simple things like going for a walk, bedtimes, creating rules around work, around friends, around food, around people. There's a lot of things that you can actually control, and there's a lot of things that you can make better to make you feel better, and to make you take better care of yourself. I think ultimately, yes, you should go ahead and do whatever makes you happy, but I think when you get to a point that you know you're taking care of yourself first, and you put yourself as a priority, it sort of has a domino effect on your life, on a lot of other aspects of your life. Like right now, for example, I'm like, work is pretty much at full speed again. I'm not gonna say I'm working 14 hours a day. I don't do that anymore. That's one thing. Like no, unless nothing. That just doesn't happen. But yes, things like not answering work calls or emails after a certain time of the day or the night or the weekend, because you need to be able to switch off and reset and look after yourself. And to me, that's been one of the main things. And I don't know how my boss and how everybody else took it, but after the pandemic and all of these things, I went in one day and I said, I need time over the weekend to switch off and reset. I will look at emails and I will look at calls and I will look at things at some point. But between these hours and these hours, I'm off.
Good for you.
And they were like, okay. So I haven't heard any complaints just yet. We're managing things as they are. But I also didn't want things to become, because you get given a work phone, there is that expectation that you're always going to be available and that people can come and call you and request things from you at any time. It's just crazy.
Yeah. Good for you on taking back that control of your time.
Yeah. Time is just so important. Seriously. And like I said, you find time to look after yourself and want to do the things that you really want to do. Like, I don't know how much longer, honestly, I'm going to stay in my job. The only thing right now preventing me from moving on is because of the visa and because I need sponsorship and all that stuff. But if I were free to just jump ship, I would have last year when the pandemic started, to be honest. But for now, it's the only job I have, so I'm looking after it. But there's that. So what I'm doing now, what I'm focusing now is, once I don't have the restriction and I'm able to move, I need to be prepared for that. So basically, for the last, well, actually, it's been since the beginning of this year, I've been taking now I'm done for now with like the health self-support books and the relationship books and all of that. Like, I've learned, move on, that's on the shelf now. And then I have on my desk things that I want to learn from my professional life. So that's where I am at the moment. I'm taking courses, I'm taking additional certifications. I'm basically preparing myself for the jobs that I want to be applying for once I have the freedom to do that.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing your story, Maria. If you had one thing to say to someone who's in the early stages of their journey right now, what would you say to them?
I would say, one, be grateful, with and take good care of the body you have, because it's the only one you're gonna have. This is not an altered carbon kind of situation that you can transfer your mind into a new body. Not gonna happen. Also, if you've managed to survive the pandemic without getting sick at any point from COVID or anything else, I would say also be grateful and be kind, be gentle to the body that's kept you healthy through the last year. That is very, very important. If you're there and you're doing it because you want to improve your health and all of that, that is fantastic. If you're starting your journey because you want a revenge body or whatever, that is also a pretty valid reason. Why not? But at the end of the day, I think if and when the other person sees you, if they didn't really care, they're not gonna care. Yeah. No matter if they didn't care before, they're not gonna care after, even if you look like you've just come out of a plastic surgeon's office. It's just one of those things. Do it for yourself.
Yeah.
Don't do it for anybody else. Just do it for yourself. And don't be so hard on yourself if it doesn't always go as planned. adherence and your markers, they're not always going to be 100%. You will have weeks and weeks and weeks in a row of achieving every single target and going above and beyond. But you're also going to have times where, your performance and how you feel and how you're at a certain point is going to be down to 80, 70. As long as you understand why it's happening and you give yourself time to reflect on that and the reasons why your performance is not as good as it was, then you're fine. You're fine. Just don't lose focus and don't let it get out of hand.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing, Maria. I'm looking forward to seeing how your journey continues to unravel.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm sorry about the upset. It's just, some things are still very, very difficult to talk about, even after all this time.
It's all part of the journey. Go.
Yes, it is. It is all part of the journey.
Time is the best healer.
Yes. Yes, it is time. It's not alcohol like some people think. Definitely time. Yes. Yes. And a lot of kindness and a lot of patience.
Yeah. Processing it and then just facing it, accepting it, not suppressing it with alcohol, like you just said.
Not suppressing it with alcohol and also not punching the bags at the gym. That helps for a little bit, but
you actually got to face it. You actually got to face it.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Definitely.